All right, good morning, everybody. One thing I want to talk about before we get into some art history is if you go into Schoology and go to your class and you go to Unit One, and I have a folder that says Exam Review. If you click on that, there's a couple things I put in yesterday. In fact, I'm going to turn off. I think I've decided that I'm not going to do a essay this time, so I'm going to turn those off. All right, if you go what I put in yesterday is the slide ID review, and look how messy this looks on here. So what you're going to do is you're going to click on this down here, and that is going to bring up this document here. All right, slide ID is a standard of art history tests all over the world. In a slide ID test, I'm going to show you pictures of artwork that we have discussed in class. You will have a piece of paper, and I want you to tell me what the title of the artwork is, what the date of the artwork is, and what the era of the artwork is. And there are 20 works of art that I want you to know. So there's 16 on the first page, 4 on the second page, and this is just straight memorization. All right. And the best way to study for the slide ID portion of the exam is to make flashcards and just memorize these. When I was taking my courses in art history, I made flashcards. So here, this is just an example of flashcards. You take an index card and you can either print and glue a picture of the artwork on one side and the information on the other side, or I have had students draw the picture real quick, just like a 1 minute drawing or a 30-second drawing, just so that they know what the artwork is. Does that make sense? If you make flashcards and turn it in on the day of the test, I will add 5 points to the slide ID portion of the test. But this is just straight memorization. Got it? So I'm telling you now because we're in chapter 3, and chapter 4 is going to be a quick chapter, so the test will be coming up soon. I don't have the exact date. All right. When we finish chapter 4, we'll do the review, and then we'll take the test. All right. Okay. So if I were you, I would start looking at the artworks, start making flashcards. Any questions about slide ID and flashcards? I'm going to turn off this as well. All right. And this Unit 1, Chat Unit 1 exam review, that's an older one, but it still has a lot of the same information on it. But we will be going over the review before the test. All right. I will be telling you what's on the test. All right. Now, let's get back into our artwork. I think we left off with the Sphinx. Okay, so at the pyramids of Giza, there are 3 pyramids, and at the causeway coming from the Khafre right there, we have the Sphinx. We have the Sphinx there. All right. And I bet you're wondering, what is a Sphinx? Well, the Sphinx is it has a lion's body, it has a woman's uh, uh, chest and head, and then the wings of an eagle. And here's some different artistic interpretations of what a Sphinx is. I think that one's pretty cool. Anyways, so the Great Sphinx is, like I said before, it is carved into the ground. It is not built up. It wasn't created from nothing. So if you look at the ground behind the Sphinx, you have these like sort of diagonal lines of the different layers of the earth. There's those same lines, those same layers in the Sphinx. So the Sphinx is just literally carved out of the ground. They dug around the Sphinx. And so basically, the head is the only thing that was actually built um, uh, and added to it. The rest of it was just carved out. And it has these very long paws in the front. It's kind of an odd proportions on this. It looks like a really tiny head and giant legs. And then you can see that bricks have been added to the back to help form the shape of the back end. And then tourists have lots of fun with the Sphinx. That one's my favorite, I think. Looks like it's thirsty. And there's all kinds of cool stuff on on the internet. All right, did your mom ever do that? We got Egypt at home, and then Egypt at home just kind of sucks. All right, moving on to the sculpture of the Old Kingdom, and we're going to go back to the pyramids of Giza. You want to stop there? Let's see. Ready to move on? In the necropolis of the pyramids of Giza, there's a royal palace right here, and this sculpture comes from that. All right, so the images, these are images of the deceased for the spirits to live in should the mummies be destroyed. So the Egyptians, like I said before, are obsessed with death and the afterlife. And so they preserve the bodies of the dead people because they believe that they will eventually come back to life. And it's also for the spirit the of Horus to enter into the body. And then the sculptures are put into the same are put into the tombs for the same purposes. So if the mummy gets destroyed somehow, then there's the sculpture for the spirit of the pharaoh to live on. And notice that um, this sculpture is made of a dark stone. Chase, can you put those chairs down, please? And it's called diorite. Is the name of this stone. It has this very dark color, and it is exceptionally hard, like granite. And it's brought down the Nile River from a quarry 700 miles away. So it's a very special stone. And on this, you can see the side of the throne that he sits on, and maybe you can see it better here. All right. It has like this part right here on this sculpture. It how you can see this front paws and rear paws. It is part of an animal. I think it's like a leopard or some sort of large cat. But the thing I really want to, oh, it's a lion. Right. And it's intertwined with lotus and papyrus, which is the symbol of the united uh, Egypt. All right. But this is kind of what I wanted to show you on this sculpture. On the back of the sculpture, on the back of the head, is what looks like to be a hawk or an eagle or a bird of some sort. What what is this? What does this bird, or who does this bird represent? That is correct. It's Horus. So Horus and the pharaoh are one here. Also, notice the fake beard that he has on his chin. All right, only a pharaoh can wear a beard of that sort. And he wears the, and what is the name of the hat that he's wearing? A Nimbus, yeah. It's a royal linen Nimbus headdress with Ura's cobra of kingship. And I don't see where the cobra is. All right, now the face has perfect proportions, and that indicates a deity status. That indicates that he is a god. These figures all had perfect proportions. They're not too large. They're not too skinny, and they have perfect proportions in the face. By the way, here is the different types of fake beards that they would wear. It's wearing a false beard signifies your status as a god. All right, and then we're going to go over to this little building right here, and we're going to look at Menkari, and I've never been able to pronounce her name, Khmer Nebri. All right, and again, these are substitute homes for the Ka. The Ka is the spirit of the god, right? Notice that the left leg is forward, but there's no shift in the hips to counterbalance the uneven distribution of weight. And if the left leg is forward and there's no shift in the hips, then that means that the left leg is longer, slightly longer, because it has to be longer to go forward and have the same. It's not like their toes are just touching the ground; their feet are flat on the ground. And so, in real life, if you slide 1 foot forward, this hip has to drop a little bit because your leg doesn't change its length. All right, so it's a little bit unnatural the way that they are standing. Whoops. There's a view from a different point of view, and this is a digital scan of their bodies. And again, I want to point out that they have idealized proportions. And the pharaohs are gods, so they are never portrayed as anything but perfect. And I want you to know this guy right here. This is a seated scribe, and he was found in a mastaba in the necropolis in Saqqara. This is a funerary sculpture meant for a tomb. And it's possible that he has been identified as K. I think his name is written somewhere on it. But this is the first time we're seeing something that's not a god or a pharaoh, right? This is a scribe. But scribes were held in a very high status in Egyptian culture. He has a stiff frontal pose, but he has more lifelike coloring and he has a more lifelike body type. You notice that he is not perfect. This is painted limestone. Limestone is actually quite easy to carve. And like I said, he's not idealized, and this is unusual in Egyptian art. He's slightly overweight. He is meant to be, his right hand would have held a brush or a pen. And what he's writing on is papyrus. It's a type of paper made from the reeds. You get a close up look at his eye, and he has a crystal for his eye. And that gives a sense of alertness, awareness, and intelligence. And then we have this figure right here, Ka-Aper. He was also found in a mastaba, and he has crystals for eyes. And he is a minor official. And the insane thing is that he's made out of wood. Wood doesn't last the test of time. This is very, very rare to have an object that is so old and made out of wood. What happens to wood over time? It rots. And why has this wood survived for 7,000 years? 5,000 years. All right. I think it's because of the dry climate in Egypt. Water is very damaging to wood. And as we get into African art, where they are in a much more humid environment, we hardly see any works of art that are older than like 200 or 300 years old, because the wood just doesn't last. And again, he's covered in painted plaster, and he has a portly physique. So it is definite that this is not a god or a ruler, but a minor official. He was famous enough, or he was important enough to have a mastaba and a sculpture carved of him, but not so famous that he would have had perfect proportions carved. And then I want to show you the scene that is written or the drawn on this portion of a wall. And this is also from Saqqara. T is an official of the fifth dynasty, and he is hunting, and hunt is a metaphor for the triumph of good over evil. And hunting is a metaphor for the victory of Horus over Set. So here's an excellent example of the hierarchic proportions that I've been talking about. Look how big this guy is compared to everybody else that's with him. And T is going about his duties and pleasures of his earthly life. The hippo hunt is more than just a sport. Animals wandered into fields and destroyed the crops. So also the companions of Set, the god of darkness, disguised themselves as hippos. And hunting is a metaphor for triumph of good over evil. And notice that the posture of T is stoic and more eternal and closer to the gods, where everybody else is more animated. The poses of his servants are active and signifies a lower class. And I want you to know this term, canon. What canon is that all Egyptian artists drew people with the same proportions. They were all taught how to draw the same way. There is only one way of drawing figures. And as we look at Egyptian art from all over Egypt, they all drew the same way. You don't have any different styles from one part of Egypt to another, with very few exceptions. And that's called canon. So Egyptian artists idealized the human form, they ignored realistic proportions, and they first drew a grid on the wall. Then they placed various human body parts at specific points on the network of squares. The height of the figure, for example, was a fixed number of squares, and the head, shoulders, knees, waist, and other parts were predetermined size and place within that scheme. This approach lasted thousands of years. And you can see it in partially finished artworks, like this figure right here and this one next to it are not quite complete. They are so you can see how they painted, what their first step was, what their second step was, and so on. And here we have the figures are fording the Nile is a metaphor for the deceased traveling into the afterlife. The purpose of art was to suggest the deceased eternal existence in the afterlife, not to portray nature. And then also, I want you to look at just how uh, similar everybody is. It's almost like a cookie cutter. If you ever made cookies with a cookie cutter, even if it's like a specific shape, every cookie has exactly the same shape because it's the same proportions. And then also, I want you to notice that there's hardly any overlap over here. That, that space that I was talking about, where it's really squished like they are on a ledge on the side of a building, and only the animals are overlapping, but the people do not overlap. All right, so let's go to the Middle Kingdom. We're going to start with the architecture. And we're going to go to a place called Beni Hassan. It's about halfway from Cairo to Thebes, and it is right on the border between the upper and lower Egypt. So this is Beni Hassan. Now, when I told you about the pyramids, what happened to the pyramids right after they were constructed? Right, they were looted, they were robbed. All right, so they stopped making pyramids. So where are they going to bury the pharaohs? Well, during the Middle Kingdom, they would hide the tombs of the pharaohs. And like I said, the pyramids didn't work. They were giant billboards that said, "Loot me, I'm full of treasure." So they moved to these rock cut tombs and hid the treasures from future generations. Can you find the tomb in this photo? Yeah, it's a trick question. I don't expect you to find the tomb. But if you look at the cliff of the rock, you see these little openings right here and here. So these are rock cut tombs, tombs cut into the existing rock structure, usually cut into a cliff. And rock cut tombs replaced mastabas. They hollowed out the cliffs in remote sites, and the columns that are on the inside are carved out of stone. They are decorative, not supportive. So if we get a little bit closer, there is no fanfare. Even if you were right here, this wouldn't look like anything special. It wouldn't look like anything was buried here. And here we have some early columns where we have, again, the capital, the shaft, and the base, and we have that fluting. And so the fluting that you see on here, that's where they carve into and around the cylinder, and they cut these grooves in it that are vertical, and you can see that in these columns. Now, this column right here on the right has a big section missing in it. That shows that these columns are not supportive. They don't support. Right? These columns are all one piece. In fact, this whole room was all one rock, and then all the empty space in here was carved out. So the columns were not added to it to support the roof. The columns are purely decorative. And the importance of this tomb right here is the first time we are seeing stone columns. And there's scenes of wrestling on the wall. All right, I'm going to try to, let's see, we are going to stop this and see if we can go. Let's try this. Okay. What is cool about this little video is I can look all the way around. So this is what it looks like from the tomb, and we can just take a look around. I love these 360 videos. And if you are wearing a headset like an Oculus, you can be looking all around. All right, you can take a look around. You see all the writings on the walls, all the drawings on the walls. Now, this tomb right here is not fluted like the others. And again, you can see the column attached to the top, and you can see the base attached to the bottom, and the whole column is missing. So, and these columns are a bit odd looking. It looks like they have like four cylinders that make up one cylinder. Anyways, this is what they look like on the inside. All right, I'm going to stop there, and we'll get back to our lesson. Current slide. That, that, that. Come on. Come on. All right, so we're going to end part 2 there, and we're going to go to the last PowerPoint that I have. Any questions about anything that I've covered so far? Show from current slide. All right, so much art history, never enough time to cover it all. So we are going to begin the New Kingdom. All right, so in the New Kingdom, we have the Pharaoh Tutmos and his wife Amos, and so they have a baby together, and that is Tutmos the second. All right, and Tutmos grows up to be when he's 15 years old. When Tutmos dies, the first one, the father, Tutmos the second becomes Pharaoh. He's only 15, and he marries his 12-year-old stepsister. And they had only one child, a girl. But he needs a son to be his heir when he dies. So he he has other wives, and with his other wives, he has a child, and that's Tutmos the third. So when Tutmos the second dies at age 32, Tutmos the third becomes Pharaoh, and he was only 3 years old. Can a 3-year-old Pharaoh rule over Egypt? Yeah. No. All right. So I want you to know his mother's name, Hatshepsut. And Hatshepsut rules as the queen regent while Tutmos III grows up. The child is the pharaoh, but his mother rules over Egypt until he gets old enough. But then she declares herself as pharaoh. So check this out. So Hatshepsut was the daughter, sister, wife, and mother to the pharaohs. So her father was a pharaoh. She married a pharaoh, and the pharaoh that she married was her brother. So she is connected to the pharaohs. And she says that because I'm the daughter of a pharaoh, and I'm also the mother of a pharaoh, and I'm the sister of a pharaoh, and I'm a wife of a pharaoh, she says that's good enough. That's enough clout for me to be a pharaoh myself. So, and this is a very strong argument that she has. So, after 7 years as the queen regent, she declares herself as the pharaoh. And this is a very shocking and daring move. This is never had there ever been a female pharaoh. And as her stepson grew, they ruled together. So Hatshepsut is the foremost of noble ladies. She's the first great female monarch whose name is ever recorded in history. And she's a good pharaoh. Like while she's a pharaoh, she makes Egypt richer. She commissioned lots of buildings and temples in her honor. But it bothered a lot of people that she was pharaoh. And pharaohs embody Horus, a male god. So there was a lot of people that didn't think she was legit. So she goes on a propaganda campaign, and she portrays herself in sculptures as male. So this is a sculpture of Hatshepsut, but there's a lot of male attributes to it. Another sculpture of Hatshepsut, that has a lot of male attributes to it. And when she was out in public, she dressed as a male. Here's another one of the sculptures of Hatshepsut, and notice that she has a chest instead of breasts. Sometimes she portrayed herself as male, sometimes female. She wears a male headdress. That nemes is for men. She wears a fake beard. That's for men. That's for gods. And in this particular sculpture, she's kneeling because she's kneeling before a god, but she is a god. The fake beard means that she's a deity. And this statue was broken into pieces long ago, and restorers have put it back. All right. Now, I told you that there's a lot of people that didn't like that she was pharaoh, and there's a lot of vandalism of her sculptures. A lot of her sculptures are destroyed. And most of them were destroyed 20 years after her death. All right, and then also all names and images of her were destroyed as well, almost all. Enough have survived that we know who she is. And I know this word is going to pop up on the screen, but I just want you to know this term, and I want you to write it down: damnatio memoriae. DAMNATIO, 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 memorai, MEMORAI, MEMORAI. Damnatio memoriae is when people try to erase you out of existence. They destroy all records of you having ever been alive. They destroy all images of you so that you will never leave a legacy. And that was tried on Hatshepsut. And to be fair, that was tried on a lot of pharaohs and a lot of rulers throughout history. So it's nothing unique to her, but it happened. Uh, there was a lot of artwork of hers that was destroyed. All right, so we're going to go to the Valley of the Kings. And in the Valley of the Kings, there are tons of tombs and structures for the pharaohs. So we're going to go to KV20 right here, and we're going to look at the mortuary temple of Hatshepsut. All right, this is what it looks like from afar, and as we get closer to it, here's a model of it. The structure to the left, that's for a different pharaoh. We're looking at the one on the right, and this is what it would have looked like 2,000 years ago. The temple of Mentuhotep II was built 500 years before Hatshepsut became pharaoh. Uh, it was the architectural inspiration for Hatshepsut's temple. She just made it bigger and better. There are various rooms and courts in this temple, and you can see the difference between her temple and the temple and the Great Pyramid of Giza. Hers is very low and long, but and you can see the procession that you would take to get to the inner chamber on both of these structures. I want to point out there's all these sphinxes that line the main entryway up these stairs and into the temple. There they are. Here's a computer model of what it would have looked like. And then here's what they look like now. There are 120 sphinxes at this site. And then here you have this great staircase and ramp that goes up to the upper levels. and you have these falcons resting on coiled cobras. The coiled cobras go back and forth across here. And this guy, though, it reminds, I don't know if you guys ever watched the Muppet Show, but it reminds me of the eagle that's on the Muppet Show. All right. So, like I said, there's different parts to this tomb, and we're going to take a look at some of these parts. We're going to look at the Hathor Chapel right here, right? And Hathor is the guardian of the region. This is why you have a Hathor Chapel uh, at this site. And Hathor is the goddess of the sun, I think, and she is often associated with cows. So that's why you have there's these cow-like horns on top of her head, and each of these represents a sistrum. You're asking what's a sistrum? That's what a sistrum is. It's a percussion instrument. And the capital has a female head with cow ears, topped with a crown. The curved lines ending in spirals and perhaps suggested of cow horns. That's what those are. These are the cow horns that I was talking about. The central section of the crown is a shrine in which the two rearing cobras with their spread hoods. There's these two cobras right here. And then she usually has a sun disk on her head. And then, like I said, she's associated with cows. So Hathor is feeding. This is Hathor, and she's feeding Hatshepsut. And over here, Hathor is submitting to Hatshepsut. This is Hatshepsut, and Hathor is licking the hand of Hatshepsut. All right, so next we're going to go to the Punt colonnade, and that's this right here. And this is the expedition to the land of Punt. So here the boats are leaving Thebes to go to Punt, and they're bringing back all the wealth of Punt. And Punt was a mythical land of wealth and riches. And imagine an El Dorado or an Atlantis. It didn't really, or nobody believed it existed, but Hatshepsut sent out boats to actually go to this place that nobody believed existed and bring back all the wealth. So instead of growing the empire through war, Hatshepsut grew the empire by trading with Punt, and which is something that nobody had ever done. All right, and then we're going to go to the birth colonnade right here. And this tells the story of the birth of, by the way, the birth colonnade is in horrible conditions. You can barely see the images that are on the birth colonnade. So we are going to take a look at drawings that of what experts believe were there. All right, so Thoth tells Amun that you should use Queen Amos to have a baby. Amun announces his plan to give Egypt a new king. Thoth recommends Queen Amos. And the carnal union of Amun and Amos. By the way, this is like sexy stuff right here, right? And the Khnum uses the Nile silt to make or to create Hatshepsut and her Ka. And Heket, the frog god, oversees the births. I'm the question marks. I'm going to put in jokes later on. I just haven't got to it. The pregnant queen Amos is accompanied by the gods, and the queen shows Hatshepsut in front of the deities, and Hathor shows Hatshepsut to Amun. Hatshepsut is shown to Hathor, and she approves, and Hatshepsut is shown to the deities of Egypt, and they approve. So that's the story of the birth of Hatshepsut. And then we're going to go to the Anubis chapel. Anubis is the god of the dead, and he invented mummification process to preserve the murdered body of Osiris. So inside there we have Osiris presented with wine by Tutmos III. And then we're going to go up to the top to the sanctuary of Amun. And there used to be 24 figures. Now there's only 8 of these figures. And this is the procession. If you're going up the stairs, you are met with these figures at the top of the third tier. And they have the crook and the flail, but there's also the scepters of the Assyrian royalty right there. The symbols of the solar royalty, the cross of life, and the was scepter. By showing all 4 symbols, she is showing that she has obtained eternal life. And only a pharaoh can do this. And then way in the back is the chamber to honor the Amun, the god of the sun. And back here in this little chamber on the inside is what I wanted to show you. Do you see this figure right here? It's been chiseled off. That is Hatshepsut. The gods are honoring Hatshepsut, and somebody came in and chiseled her out of the wall. Here's another one where she has been chiseled off the wall, and others where possibly her name was written and things that she did were chiseled off the wall. And then here are some artworks where they were damaged of Hatshepsut. And the damnatio memoriae is the damnation of memory. All right, we are going to stop there and pick up with Ramses tomorrow. Any questions about anything we've done so far? Any questions about the slide ID? Do your soft chalks, find an article, go to the library, bring in a book on Monday. What else? All right. Students have had trouble trying to find an article at school. I tell them it works much better at home. So try it at home. If not there, go to a Starbucks or something. Try it there.